Are you ready?
Yep.
Step on!
Welcome to the 3 Gun Show, your source for technique, strategy, and match recon. Brought to you by Armalite Rifles, LAG Tactical, and Breda Shotguns. I'm your host, Dave Hartman, and this week we're going to continue our coverage of the IPSC Shotgun World shoot with Heather Miller. This podcast is brought to you by LAG Tactical. I've been using LAG gear for 3 years now, and I just got an upgrade into their new for 2018 MCS mag pouches. MCS stands for Modular Carry System and is a 2-piece design that fits most double-stack 9 and 40 mags and most AR mags. That means I can loan gear to someone in need on the range, even if we're shooting different guns. I've been using these pouches for many matches now, and they've been great. I like that you can choose the retention based on what is required by the stage, Speed Demon or Locked In Tight. I've been shooting the low-cut Supernova holster as well, and it has been a dream. They make it in a mid and high cut too if you're into that, but I'm digging the low cut. Super fast draws and plenty of retention when you need it. Check them out, lagtactical.com, and use code 3GS in all caps to save yourself 10% when placing an order. This podcast is brought to you by Breda USA, Italian shotguns that are the best in the world. And this is a shotgun tech tip from Team Breda. Hey, this is Dave Hartman for the 3 Gun Show, and we have Josh Tarrant of Team Breda, and he's here with a shotgun tech tip for you. Josh, what do you got?
Today we're going to talk about shotgun stance. Stance is incredibly important to be able to shoot a shotgun well, manage recoil. So first step, we're going to start at the feet. You want your feet wider than shoulder width apart. If you're right-handed, you want your left leg further forward. You want about 75% of your weight on your left leg, weight over the balls of your feet. You want to have a nice forward lean of your spine. Shoulder the shotgun, roll your shoulder forward to cradle. And that'll help you ride the recoil and get back on target faster.
That's another shotgun tech tip with Josh Tarrant from Team Breda. Thanks, Josh. Check out Breda's B12i 3-gun ready inertia-driven shotgun at BredaUSA.com. That's BREDA. Welcome, everybody, to the 3 Gun Show. I'm Dave Hartman, your host, and with me is Heather Miller. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm totally pumped to have you. So it's been a couple of years since you've been on the show here, and you've been up to a lot. So we're gonna talk about it all here.
Yeah, I've been busy.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Heather, I want to get to the world shoot. You just got back from France, and you're reacclimating and getting back in the swing of things here. But before we get to that, I want to talk about your journey as a shooter, and we missed that last time you were on the show. But now's our chance. So, Heather, let's do a little brief introduction of yourself for the audience. Who are you off the range? What do you do when you're not shooting?
Work. No, so I work full time. I am director of marketing for a company called Quantico Tactical. We also actually just rebranded our retail side, which is now called Proven Arms and Outfitters. But yeah, so I work full time. I've recently, for about the past year, about a year ago, I started working full time again, not just shooting. So I've been in the past year really trying to balance a career and shooting at the same time, which, definitely creates its own challenges. And sometimes I question my own sanity. But, and the reality of it, that is most shooters.
Mm-hmm.
probably 98% of shooters have a full-time job that they have to balance on top of shooting. And it's something that I enjoy being able to do both. But my journey with shooting really started out about 2010. I mean, at least I should say my journey with competitive shooting started about 2010.
Well, did you grow up shooting, first of all?
Yeah, absolutely. I am my dad's daughter, and I love my mother, but my dad was the one that was always going to the range. My dad's a phenomenal shooter. Like he's always been, a good long range shooter, good close range. My dad went from military into law enforcement. And the first time I went to the range, I was 4 years old, and I remember he was shooting a 30-06, because I remember it was really, really, really loud, and he was worried about the ear pro. And so I remember he would say, "Okay, we're going to shoot the big gun now. Run and jump in the truck." And I would jump in the truck and cover my ears and lay there. And half the time, I would wake up pissed off, a pissed off 4-year-old, because I would wake up because I would generally lay there with my ears covered, and my brother or my dad would have shot so long that I would generally fall asleep, like most 4-year-olds do.
Yeah.
And then I wake up and all the fun was done. I was super pissed. I was like, this is not fair. But eventually, I got bigger and got better ear pro. And I mean, that was what I did with my dad. Was we would go on the range and we would shoot. We shoot pistol, rifle, shotgun, you name it. My parents bought a large portion of property there in South Texas, and we moved there when I was 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And so, it's funny because I look back and that, when I hit my teenage years, I turned into a typical teenage girl.
Really, really easy to get along with.
Yeah, super easy to get along with. Really even tempered, hormones totally imbalanced. And I remember hating living in the country and just being like, I hated it, which was for about 3 years of my life. I was like, no, I want to be a city girl and I don't want this anymore. And then I think maybe about a year of living in the city, I was like, I wish I could have gone back to the country, because you could literally walk out the back door, and we had a berm that we had built out of dirt and wood. And you could shoot anything. You could literally do anything. You could shoot anything. You could walk out. You could hunt. You could just be like, I'm going to go hunt rabbits today, and just roll out the back, And it was a great upbringing. And I thank God that I had parents that introduced me to the shooting sports and not so much the shooting sports, but introduced me to firearms.
Right. Like recreational shooting.
Yeah, I loved it. When I was 8 years old, I have a picture somewhere. I asked my parents for 2 things for Christmas, and it was a Red Ryder BB gun and a old timer skinning knife.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I got both of them because I was ready to hunt, because I knew when I was 9 I could go hunting with my dad. So I was like, I got you. For Christmas, I'm gonna get the Red Ryder, which couldn't kill maybe a bird. I don't know, but right. I was like, it's still a gun to me. So I got that and my old timer skinning knife. And then when I was 9, I got to go hunting with my dad. And so I grew up hunting, and I had that solid foundation, a very solid, positive foundation in firearms. Mm-hmm. And I wish the shooting sports were then what they are now, because my parents had no idea what it was. They didn't know that USPSA or any of that stuff existed. So
yeah. Well, look at the juniors that we shoot with, that they've got such a leg up being 17, 18 years old and being able to play in this sport.
Oh, I know. It's you look at, I'm always impressed by the juniors. We have Garrett Dietrich and Dakota Overland. And I look at them like, oh my gosh, you were just 2 years ago, you were this big and 80 pounds soaking wet, and now you're just slaying it and crushing all of us adults. All we can hope for is that we can somehow outsmart you with wisdom. But they're just getting faster and better because they're young and they pick it up so quickly. And I it was one of those things, if I could rewind time, I'd be like, hey, Dad, there's this whole USPSA, IDPA, 3-gun will come eventually.
Yeah, Steel Challenge, Rimfire stuff. There's so many games out there to play, even when you're young and can't move with a gun, right?
No, yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. But I'm delighted that I had the solid foundation that I had. And when I was 25, 26, I started getting into competitive shooting. And the years between that, I had gone, and I'm almost embarrassed to say, I had taken a lot of like uber tactical classes.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. Super tactical ninja.
Do you have like a plate carrier? Do you have a camo?
That was like the next class. Like, you're going to graduate. Next time you're going to wear a plate carrier and do a ninja roll.
Nice. So, fun fact, there's actually a ninja training facility right below where I'm sitting right now. I think it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but there's a lot of kids in there and they look like ninjas. But so
nice.
that is like the graduation, right? You get your belt, you move up in a belt size. For you, it'd be a plate carrier.
Yeah. Except I was like, I'm not really sure about this whole thing. A lot of this seems a little overhyped.
Yeah. So what drew you to taking those classes? Did you just miss like the recreational aspect of shooting, or doing something in a structured environment? Or
it really started with concealed carry.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready to make the step towards concealed carry. And so I was like, being raised with a good foundation of firearms knowledge, and with my dad being in law enforcement, he's like, listen, he goes, if you start carrying a firearm on your person or in your purse or however you decide to carry it, like, you need to have training, like more than what I gave you growing up. Like, you need to know about, what happens if you actually have to pull your firearm out in a public setting. Like, what's your target? What's beyond your target? All of those things that I was like, oh my God, I never thought about this. I was like, what if I shoot a gun inside my house? Like, it was like the valuable lessons that I needed to learn. So I love to make jokes and say like, tactical ninja classes, but I did learn a lot. Like, I learned that, surprisingly, a standard wall in a house doesn't necessarily stop bullets.
Yeah, it does in the movies, though. You can actually hide behind them.
Yeah, it does in the movies. And surprisingly, a car door doesn't stop bullets. It might cause them to do funny little things, but
windshield. Yeah, all those things.
So I went and I sought out classes and got education. And I think that was kind of like the precursor to the shooting sports, because I've never really been that competitive.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started taking these classes, like, I found myself, I was like, I'm not so shabby, and I found myself like measuring myself against the other person. I was like, I want to shoot faster, and I can shoot a little bit more accurately and faster than they are. And so I found myself really enjoying it. And I found myself that, like, I loved the class, like shooting in the group scenario, more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved talking to the people. And it was just, like-minded people. They're all taking the class because they want to have more education. And I found it really fun. And I knew about competitive shooting at that time, but do
you think that'll get you killed in the streets?
I stayed away from competitive shooting because I thought it was a boy sport.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the guy aspect really, really intimidated me. But if I were to rewind to the person that I was before I got in the shooting sports to the person that I am now, it's almost night and day. Like, you could not pry a word out of me, hardly. Like, doing this, no, not even. It would
really?
Not. No, I was terrified. I was terrified of talking to people. And I hadn't quite come out of my shell yet.
Mm-hmm.
And the shooting sports was able to do that for me. But yeah, no, at the time I was like, oh no, that's shooting. I would, I would see competitions and go, and I like watch people sometimes, but I was like, yeah, no, that's like a boys thing. And
so did you see that and want to do it, but you were,
I wanted to.
Now, was the boys thing, do you think that, like, looking back now with the the gift of time, do you think now that was an excuse, like maybe you were intimidated by the game, or is it legit like there's no girls here and I would feel uncomfortable?
It was kind of a combination of both. So it was like, one, there were no girls there.
Mm-hmm.
There were no girls, And, it was always, I don't know, I've always been one of those girls, like, I like to respect, like, a man needs to be a man, right? And men need their outlet.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would never be the girl that shows up on boys' night, like, hey, I made the brownies, and oh, you're smoking cigars. Please put those out. Like, I never want to be that girl, right? Like, shows up and ruins things. But what kind of did it for me was I saw a girl at the match, and I saw her with her husband. I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And it was something that it took some courage. So part of it was, I think, and I think this, now knowing what I know, I think a lot of it was in my head, it was my own self-doubt, just fear of, I think every shooter, every new shooter before they get into competition, you think everyone's going to be watching you.
Right.
You literally think, like, I'm going to get up to shoot and everyone's going to, like, put down their range bags. They're going to stop what they're doing and they're going to watch everything that you do.
Yeah. Matt Kupika calls it, he says that you have to get over your fear of sucking, but you also have to get over your fear of public speaking, which most people would rather die than public speak, right? Because you are literally standing, in your mind, you're standing up in front of everyone and they're watching everything you do, which, Heather, you figured out the key on that one.
I did. Oh, gosh. It's one of those things, like, I'll tell you, very few people know this. My very first USPSA match that I showed up at, about in the first probably 5 minutes that I was there, I almost got back in my vehicle and drove back home.
Really? Why is it?
I won't even mention the shooter. I won't even say who it was. and I didn't have a thick skin, and I didn't realize, like, what I love about the shooting sports now. I didn't realize that they were poking at me, kind of teasing me to try to, like, get me to lighten up.
Oh. But
I showed up, and one of my mentors and instructors, he's this retired old school force recon Marine, and literally like his knees and his joints and stuff were so bad that on, like, really rainy days, like, it would cause him a lot of pain. And part of me kind of thinks he didn't think I was going to show up that day to actually shoot. But I drove what was supposed to be like a 2-hour drive, turned into a 3-hour drive through a rainstorm. And I show up and he's not there.
Oh.
Here's my first match. I drove all this way through this stupid storm. I get there, it's muddy. And the match director and the few shooters that actually showed up through the storm, like the really die-hard shooters, were like, maybe we should call it. Like, it's just dumping rain. It's super miserable. And this one shooter just kind of is like, hey, who are you? And just really starts, like, and I was so introverted at the time. He just was kind of like poking at me and being like, hey, who are you? You showed up. Oh, your instructor, your mentor didn't show up. And teasing me. And I was like, in my mind, I'm like, just get in your car and go back home. Like, go back home. This is stupid.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
This is such a bad idea. And I literally, like, as those thoughts were going through, there's this retired, another Marine that was in the area, and he actually met his wife through shooting, and they would always shoot together. And he saw me, and he points at me, he's like, hey, I know you. And he comes up and he's like, hey, I saw you at a couple matches a while back. He's like, so you're here, like, you're shooting. I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna go. And he was like, and he invited me to come with. He goes, you know what? You should squad with me, shoot with my wife and I, and we'll just. He goes, you know how to operate a firearm. We're just gonna show you a new game, a new way of shooting. And he's like, and if you don't like it, then roll out. But he's like, you drove all this way. Like, okay. And his wife is so sweet, and she's like, oh, come on, I don't actually, what? And at the time they weren't married. I now remember, because I went to their wedding, because they had a zombie zombie shooter wedding several months down the road.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. And I don't know if they realize quite what they did. Like just being the way that shooters are, so warm and friendly, and that community, that family of shooters that those of us that shoot regularly have come to know, like them just being like, hey, no, come on, shoot with us, was instrumental in me coming into the shooting sports.
That's
great. And it was people like them that, I'm here.
That's incredible. And it really is those first interactions that you have that really set the tone. And I've told this story before. So, I, in spite of being a podcast host, I'm kind of introverted myself. I do spend like a lot of time up in my head. And well, my first experience with shooting a match was I reached out to the match director of like a local club match. And I called him up, and he started giving me a hard time about like the pistol I had, and because I only had a 1911 that was a 45, and so he started making fun of me for having the 45, and said a few swear words and stuff like that about me and my shooting and stuff. I was like, bro, we don't even know each other. We've never even spoke. Like, this is weird. And so then I didn't go to that match, and I didn't go shoot for like 2 years. And it took me, yeah, isn't that weird? So then it took me that long to actually go and try out a match, and it was a 3-gun match, not that particular match that I initially called about. And so those guys were like warm and inviting and welcoming, and they would actually have fun and things like that. So when faced with new people, sometimes like we're trying to get our game together, we're trying to perform to the best of our ability, or maybe we're trying to find that mod choke that we know is in the bag, but I can't figure it out where it is. But for experienced people, like, just be careful of your impression and the the interactions that you have, because that is their impression. Like, this is the first time they're here. This is everything that you tell them is going to be their impression of 3-gun or USPSA or IDPA or something like that.
Well, and it's funny you say that, because like the person that I remember that caused me to want to walk away from my first USPSA match ended up becoming a good friend later on down the road.
Really?
Yes. And I was like, man, you were such a jerk. A jerk. I was just trying to get you to like come out of your shell, because your eyes were like this big, and it's like, yeah, you can't do that with everybody.
It's hard to tell, right?
Yeah, like some people, and for me, I had a great shooting club. North Carolina has great shooting sports, and so Sir Walter Raleigh was the club that I shot at, and it's up surprisingly near Raleigh. Who'd have thunk it? But like, we had this great network of shooters, and so they became like family, and it was just funny because they kind of helped me grow into a woman. Like, they really helped me. Like, I always tell you, like, one of the things I love the most about the shooting sports, and what it helped me develop my interpersonal skills, and to be the overly talkative person that I am now, was the fact that when I always tell you, like, when you get up to the line and you're the shooter, like, people can help you prep your gear beforehand. They can help you, prep and design and figure out how you're going to shoot the stage. But when you get up to the line, it's you.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to help you at that point. Like, maybe if your gun malfunctions terribly or something, but it's all on you. You're pulling the trigger. You're making decisions. If something happens in between start and stop, you've got to assess the problem and figure it out. I mean, if you're a trooper, you're going to fix the malfunction, you're going to do what it takes, and you're going to get to the end. And for me, it helped me develop a lot of self-confidence. I was like, oh, wow, I can shoot. I can be pretty decent at this. And you know what? Like, I have to problem solve, and I have to problem solve now. And like that confidence in myself that I built through that network of, it's a really positive community. It's a positive group of people. And so even when I would suck terribly, I would want to walk off the stage being like, oh my gosh, did that terrible, and that was a disaster, and did I really used to do my reloads like this? Like, give me advice. Like, people would point out like the positive stuff that I did, and it just helped me really develop as a person and really gain that self-confidence to, as I grew into a woman and grew into, having a career and coming to where I am now. It really, those shooters, the ragtag bunch that I used to hang out with, were just like the most amazing people in the world. And I feel like sometimes I don't give them enough thanks. Anytime I tell them thank you or try to say, you remember that day when you told me like it's time to spread your, I'll actually say it because I'll embarrass the heck out of him if he ever watches this. But Joseph Parent, we call him Willie Parent. We used to shoot together on a regular basis till he became I believe his title is Director of Glock Professional now.
Okay.
But we used to shoot together all the time. And I remember one time he came up to me and I always tell him, like, you have to remember how influential the statement was. But I was really nervous and I was shooting a match. I was like, I don't know. I went up and I was like, no, I don't know if I can do this. This is intense. And he told me, he just looked at me, he goes, like, takes a cigarette out of his mouth. I was like, all right, little birdie, time to spread your wings and fly. Like, what? He goes, time to spread your wings and fly. I was like, what does that mean? He was like, you know how the stage goes, like, do it. I'm like, but I have all these questions. He's like, you know how to walk a stage. He's like, it's time to figure out your stage plan and do it. And it was just, I had such, and such positive mentors and role models that, they would make little statements like that. I was like, you know what? It's time to spread my wings. Like, okay, I can totally do this, And it's been just influential throughout my life. I mean, even up to now, like if I have a moment of self-doubt, like I'll think little thoughts like that, it's time to spread my wings.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to execute and do this.
It's pretty amazing how first of all, the confidence that practical shooting can give you. I see a lot of it in juniors, like the juniors that I run into on the range are so much easier to talk to than ones you run in the grocery store that are, bagging your groceries. And I just think like that's because of the responsibility and the confidence that practical shooting gives them. And it's amazing how like one person can say one thing like that and just to them, it's like a cast off comment, or maybe they've said it 100 times before, but it just resonates with you and something you carry for years.
It is. I started laughing because I'm also thinking about other things that he told me one time, but I can't say on camera. But I remember like there was still occasionally like the crotchety like guy that would try to come up and tell me like, oh, well, like push up my glasses. You should have shot it this way or whatever. And I had outshot them. I was faster and more accurate and had scored higher than them. But they'd want to come up and try to critique something. And I remember one time I was bothered by it, and I'll just say, he looked at me in his old school Marine way, and he goes, Heather, he's like, next time someone comes up and tries to, talk smack to you about something, just look at him very just nonchalant and just go F yourself. I'm sorry, do what? And like at the time I was still like introverted growing up, and I was like, yeah, no, I can't do that. I was like, I can't do that. And then the next time, I think we were shooting a stage, and he came up and was like, if you had done such and such and not done that mag change like before the next stop, you could have been a little bit faster. And I looked at him and I said, hey, Willie, go F yourself. He's like, you're not supposed to use it towards me.
That other guy, not me.
Yeah, but it was great because it was just one of those things. Like I learned so much from the shooters that I shot with, and they're hilarious and it was such good humor and and I was raised around the shooting sports. I was raised very sheltered, and so a lot of that like witty banter that adults have, I didn't grow up around that. Like I didn't understand that, and so I learned it in my late 20s, where a lot of people would have learned it when they were younger. And it was funny because, even something as funny as that was, it was also one of those things where I learned not to let people mess with me,
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to say that other word, but I don't say that often. I mean, I do curse, but I try not to tell people to go,
right.
I like to say go kick rocks, right?
Nice. Okay, so let me write this down. No, don't offer advice to Heather. Well, no, on that topic. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. So, as a female in the sport that is, still, what are we, 8 years later from when you started, still dominated by men. Do you find that there's a lot of, oh, and then I got to tell you a funny story about you one time when we were shooting a Generation 3 gun that just came into my head. But do you, I know, do you find that that there's a lot of unwelcome or unneeded advice, or like, hey, darling, you know what you ought to do, that kind of thing? Is that like a huge part of the shooting sports? Because, I don't get that as a dude.
No, I don't think so. Like, if anything, and it's always one of those things, like, it's always like looking back, right? There were times where I remember feeling like, oh my God, every dude kept coming up. Like, every guy at the match is like, oh, you should do this, and oh, you should do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I could put on my shoes in the morning and dress myself. Like I'm fine, But I think it's a lot of misconceptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you yourself are feeling self-conscious and then people are giving you a lot of advice, then sometimes you can miscommunicate what they're doing.
Yeah.
It is generally from, and this is something that when I'm teaching a class of all women, I tell them, like, they are not trying to give you a hard time. They're literally super excited to see you. Like, most men on the range, like, I can count on one hand in the past 8 years how many dudes were ever just being turds, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, most of them, even like the oldest crotchetiest, just like, hey, your mag pouch sits too far forward, or has like some common. Generally, they literally are just trying to give you advice because they want you to do better. And most of them are excited to see you there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that a lot of men in the shooting sports have realized what we've all come to realize, that it's not a sexist thing, that the more women that you get involved in the shooting sports is thus going to be more juniors involved in the shooting sports. And the more that you can get more, people from different backgrounds, more females, more juniors involved in it,
mm-hmm.
the more of the likelihood that we will be able to protect the Second Amendment, because it's those younger generations. And still, there are plenty of women raising children, and if they're anti-gun and they have bad experiences or negative experiences with firearms, that is going to translate down to their children. And so if you can get a woman, even though it's going to cost you a lot more when your household starts having two people shooting, like, it's one of those things that if you can have the wife on board, if the female is on board with what you're doing, then one, she's not going to give you a bunch of flack for going out and shooting.
Right.
You're going to enjoy your weekend a little bit more. And most likely she's going to want to come with you. But generally, I've seen it as enthusiasm. And it's just kind of like anything, if I wasn't shooting, and let's just say I was, I don't know, mountain biking or doing anything, it would be the same thing. Like, guys would be like, oh, there's a new person on the range, or new person on the track, and it's mostly like a male dominated thing. They're going to try to give you help because
mm-hmm.
I think that, like, with shooters, we all like to feel like we know something.
Yeah.
Deep down,
that's for sure.
Good, to feel like you know something, and to be able to tell that to a new person and have them listen to you, and then do that, then you feel really good.
Yeah. Let me show you a little thing I like to call reverse kneel. You're gonna love this one.
Oh.
I mean, that's a good example. Reverse kneel, right? It's something simple that all the experienced shooters teach the new shooters. So, but it seems like magic.
Well, it's funny because before Eric and I ever started dating and long ago, he actually was one of my shooting mentors, like him and he and several of this ragtag group of guys. And it was funny because they were pointed out to me because my mentor said, he goes, listen, he's like, everyone is going to want to tell you, like, shoot this way and do this. And he goes, a lot of it, don't listen to them.
Yeah, a lot of it's really wrong.
Yeah, he's like, just let it go in one ear and out the other, smile and be nice, and just like, be like, oh, thank you. And then just like delete that from your mind. And he said, that group over there, he goes, listen to everything. Like if they talk to you about shooting, like listen to it. Anything else, don't talk to them. And it was so funny because I remember going up and I'm like, those guys, the guys that look, they're young guys from, generally young military guys that look like they've had a good weekend, and went up and I was like, I'm going to shoot a stage and I don't know what I'm doing. And it was great because like they treated me like kid sister. I was like scared. I was like the most scared of them because like half of them were wearing like multicam pants and just, I don't know. They were super intimidating. And I remember like the first time I walked up, there's a guy, I already would say his name. No, TK. So I've never met TK. TK is a great storyteller and he's hilarious. Well, he was telling a very animated story and he was cursing like while he's telling the story because he's got the guys are sitting around, he's telling the story. And I just like kind of like ease up quietly because I have a question. And I get up behind him and he turns around and he's like, oh, like, no, it says several curse words. And then Heather, oh, shoot, damn it, I need to stop cursing, and like, literally was like tripping over himself to stop cursing. And they're all just like, what do you need?
Can we help you?
Yeah, just like, and they were great. They're like, oh, well, and like, here's what'll make you a better shooter. Here's where you're wasting time. Like this will make you more efficient. This will make you better. And so I just had this amazing group of people to help me. And they weren't just like, oh, great, we got the chick on the range. They were actually just like, yeah. Just treated me kind of like one of the guys. And that, as I kept on shooting, treated me like kid sister. And I was like, great. Cause I felt comfortable when I saw, like, I had my mentor there. I had these groups of people that I knew, like, I could go up and ask about a stage plan, or if I had a problem with my gun, I could ask them. And I knew that they knew more than I did and would give me the best advice possible. And I think, it's instrumental. That's why I have such a love for the shooting sports in general, because it's just, it's an amazing group of people across the board, and I would shoot with this group that our age range went from, I think several times I was the youngest, and like mid 20s to we had 80s. Like we had the guy wearing his support socks up to his knees, and he shot open because that's all he could see anymore was a red dot.
I love that guy.
Yes, he was great. He always loved to wear tank tops and was always hilarious because, like, he's wearing tank tops and he wouldn't be wearing tank tops, but he's like had his tank top and his tall shorts like up halfway up his waist with his like support socks, and it was just great because it was like this great group like of crazy people all together sharing one passion.
That's one thing that I really like about the the club match scene is that there is like a huge diversity of people and of walks of life, and people with gear, people with different focuses on the game. There's always the guy who's like training for zombies or whatever, and then there's the dude that's 80 with the tank tops and stuff like that. And it's so much fun to be able to shoot with all those different types of people, and you're all sharing, like you said, one love and one joy, and you're having fun together doing, celebrating your Second Amendment rights. So
yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's one of those things that is like, there's so many times, and I think it's great. Like, this is the first year I wasn't able to be a part of the DC project. I was part of the original 12 that went with Di to do like the test run in DC to educate our legislators about the Second Amendment. But the shooting sports is always something that I use to talk about when I'm talking to my congressman or to my senator. And some of those things I'm like, man, if you knew
Yeah.
this amazing group of people, and some of us have very, very different political views, but the one thing that brings us together is the shooting sports. And, and it's so diverse, like the group of people, like you've got, the SF guy, you've got the bookkeeper, the accountant, the IT guy, you've got this mix of people from all different, different backgrounds, ethnicities, sexes, and we all come together and enjoy this one thing. And if anything, it helps us all realize how to work together. And that's always something that I, at least with my North Carolina legislators, I always tell them, do you realize North Carolina for the longest time has been the mecca of the shooting sports? There was absolutely one point in time, it's actually even now, you can't go a weekend without a major or at least a well-filled, at least 100 competitor match going on.
Right.
USPSA or long range or 3-gun, there's something going on at all times. Do you realize this is going on in your state? These are your constituents.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we talked about when you're on the show talking about the DC project. We were in New Mexico at the NRA Whittington Center, and the climate in North Carolina is crazy. You guys have 150 people at your club matches, right? They're significant.
Yeah, we have to cap them off and not allow people in, which sucks.
Yeah.
Match, and that's all I wanted to do this Saturday, but I registered late, and they generally try to let people in, but it's just been that way. And it's part of why I've stayed living in North Carolina for so long, is because if I didn't have to work so much,
yeah,
when I worked, it wasn't working as much. But I would literally go from weekend to weekend. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to shoot a long range match here. I'm going to shoot a USPSA match here. I'm going to shoot an IDPA match the next weekend, and I'll shoot 3-gun the next one, And they were all good matches. It wasn't your hodgepodge, just half-ass thrown together match. It's a well done match. And, I consider myself lucky that my introduction to the shooting sports was in a state that had such a good influence.
Definitely. Okay, so you let's back up a little bit. You got into the shooting sports. You found kind of your little cadre of people that are going to be helping you through it. So when did it turn from just a pistol match to 3-gun?
Honestly, it was when our local Sir Walter Raleigh match, which was my most looked forward to USPSA match of the month, because it was always that was the one that our monthly USPSA match was a level 2 USPSA match. They would count out at 120, 130 shooters, and you'd shoot 6 stages, and that was back, we're still scoring on paper.
Oh God.
Imagine that. And and
horrible.
It was all day. It was paper. You finished around 4 or 5 o'clock, and then you waited for the paper results to be scored, But you noticed people started disappearing, and Tar Heel 3-gun had started, and everybody's they're shooting that 3-gun stuff. Oh, that sounds terrible. The way some of the guys would talk about 3-gun, I was like, ooh, it must be bad.
I know. I bet those people are mean. Sound terrible.
They're those 3-gunners, and it was actually. It was, Eric and TK and a lot of those guys that were generally we would see at every match, suddenly weren't coming anymore. And the match, it was the next weekend, because it just happened at the time that Tar Heel 3-gun was coinciding with Sir Walter Raleigh's USPSA match. And so the next one I saw him, he showed up at the USPSA match we had on the second weekend, because we, like I said, we have a USPSA match every weekend.
Right.
They're oh yeah, it's this 3-gun thing, and it's super fun. And then they started talking about the gear, and I'm ooh, yeah, I really don't have all that stuff. So I'm I have a pistol, and I have pistol mags and a pistol belt. I can't just up. And, like now I got to get optics and rifles and a shotgun and shotgun stuff. And that was, I mean, that's back when people were like still loading, just like thumbing them in there.
Yeah, the weekend quad load or weekend load 4. There we go.
Yeah, like the classic, just like thumbing in like load 4s. And I think it was actually just before twin loading had come into effect. Like imagine that, right? Twins didn't exist yet.
That's when I started. I actually bought I think they were AP Customs, and they had like the 2 stacks of 4, and so you grab 4 and shuffle them in there, and grab 4 and shuffle them in there. Those are the caddies that I started with, and I remember a pal of mine got load 2s shortly thereafter, and I looked at him and I'm watching him load, and I'm like, it's not that much faster. And then just after a while, he just blazed right by me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I guess it is faster.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so it was enough that like people kept saying, just come down and try it. And like, I don't remember what happened or why, but I ended up going down and shooting my first 3-gun match, and I giggled like throughout. Like,
did you go out and buy gear? Did you borrow gear, or what'd you do?
It was a mix. So I had some gear and I was borrowing gear. And unfortunately I knew enough people, but it was like, I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing with the shotgun. I was actually scared to death of shotgun. I hated shotgun the most of everything.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I hated shotgun. I know. It's funny because I love shotgun now. Like shotgun is like, I'm like, please just give me a shotgun. Forget everything else. Shotgun. But at the time I was like, ooh, no. Cause I was like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Like I was like, the most I had shot shotgun was like, shooting at, moving animals, flying animals most of the time. And so this was just like, oh my gosh. I mean, I just keep pulling the trigger. Oh, great. Okay. But I remember just like laughing like the whole time I was shooting. I was like, I am doing terrible, but this is like the most fun I've ever had while shooting. Like,
that's awesome.
I think Carla Herzig, which I mean, I don't know if she still shoots anymore, but Carla Herzig was one of the first people I shot with, and I mean, I remember looking at her and like, oh my god, whoa, like, she's like super CrossFit chick, and like I was watching her go through, I'm like, dude, that's badass. I was like, that's awesome, like I want to be like that, And yeah, I was hooked from match 1. It was the most fun I had ever had, and I say this delicately, it's a different crowd.
Yeah, it definitely is. So how would you describe the difference in the crowd?
I used to tell people, I was kind of like, if you compared like USPSA to 3-gun, like USPSA was like khakis and loafers, and 3-gun was like board shorts and flip-flops.
Yeah, there you go. That's a pretty decent analogy. I like that one.
And it's funny because like I love USPSA. I actually love all the shooting sports. As much crap as people give IDPA, I love IDPA for it being IDPA. Like it has so many good skill sets with IDPA, but there are just different crowds. And my first 3-gun match, I was like, ooh, this is like the wild, wild west, like, it was kind of, I felt like it was, more responsibility. Cause I mean, it's multitasking at its finest. It's not just one gun and one gun bag, it's managing 3 throughout a stage. It's truly multitasking at its finest. And I don't know. It was just a cool group of people, and and I don't even know if I could say this on the show, but it was like the first time I shot a match. Like once the match was done and all the guns were put away, like someone threw down their tailgate and opened up a Yeti and pulls out a beer. I'm like, we can have beer?
Is this okay? Can we do this?
Like, oh boy, I'm like expecting like somebody to like jump out of the bushes and be like, whoop, whoop, whoop. And I was like, yeah, you want a Corona? I'm like, you mean so we're just gonna like have a beer now and hang out? Like, that's weird. I was like, because I was so used to like shooting the match and then generally leaving.
Yeah.
It's just great because it was like, once everything was set up, once the ROs were done and targets were put away and the match was complete, then it was like, open up the cooler, have a beer, set up a lawn chair, sit on the tailgate, and then sit there and tell stories. And it was great because it was like, I think that's a lot of times what draws people to 3-gun is it's like this sense of community.
Yeah. It's very social sport.
Yeah, it's like now I'm sitting on a tailgate with all these cool people and they're telling all these great stories and I'm laughing till I keep wiping tears from my eyes and like, yes, I will come back. I will come back time and time again, and I have to tell all my friends, like I have to bring more and more people into this because, if USPSA wasn't quite their thing, maybe the 3-gun crowd is there.
Yeah.
Might be their thing.
And that's one of the great things about the shooting sports is there's so many different kinds, even if you just stick in action shooting, that you can find something that you like. There's people that, I love shooting rifle, but I don't like running over things and jumping on things, and I hate the shotgun. Well, hey, there's this, PRS, there's NRL, there's all these different options for you to get out there and shoot. And then there's the guys that, want to buy one pistol when they're 29 years old and then shoot that exact same pistol for the next 35 years and become a master at that one thing. So there's something for everybody.
I always tell people, I was like, because I actually started with IDPA.
Mm-hmm.
I told people it was like the gateway drug, It's like, and you shoot IDPA and you're like, that's fun. I like it. And then you hear about this USPSA and they're like, hey, all those rules, you don't have all those crazy draw from concealment, can't drop the mag. You can drop the mag anytime you want.
You don't have to wear a vest?
Yeah. And you're like, maybe I'll go shoot this USPSA badge. And, you go and shoot it and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool.
What else you got?
Then you hear about 3-gun a few years later and they're just like, maybe I'll go try that. And then actually 3-gun, after shooting 3-gun, made me go, I like shooting rifle. I actually like shooting in long range. Ooh, I'm going to go shoot PRS. And, go and shoot a PRS match and realize how many times I could try to pull the trigger and not rack a bolt. And and then they started the PRS gas gun series. And it was like, well, if you didn't like bolt guns, but you still want to shoot serious long range, now we have PRS gas gun division. And it's like, they keep setting stuff up for people that it's like, okay, well, what do you like? What do you want to try? Or I always recommend Steel Challenge for new shooters. Hey, you're brand new. You don't have all the rigs and all the stuff. Show up and shoot. Shoot Steel Challenge, man. You can just take the gun straight out of the bag as long as you have a couple mags. You can shoot to their heart's content, and
you don't even have to walk anywhere.
Yeah, no walking,
no nothing. Reset.
Yeah, and you're generally done in 2 hours. So boom.
Yeah, that's like the appointment shooting, right? You just get your tea time and go there. No reset. Done in 2 hours.
Nothing. I used to go. They would hold one. They used to hold one up at Woody's Hunt and Rifle Club, and I would go, and they would hold it. It would start at 5:30. And it would start at 5:30, and you were done by 7:30. By the time the sun was going down, we would work through 5 squads through 5 stages of Steel Challenge, and it was great because now I'm home in time for dinner and got my Wednesday fun shooting session in.
That's awesome. Good thing to do after work.
Yeah.
Well, Heather, so you've had quite the progression over the last bunch of years, and we're skipping so much in between, but we need to talk about the World Shoot. So you just went to the 2018 IPSC Shotgun World Shoot in France, and so you started out running from the 30-06, hiding in the truck, falling asleep. Here you are at the World Shoot. There's a lot of space in between, but let's talk about that World Shoot experience.
Oh my gosh. Can we just roll back 3 weeks and put me back into France? Because it was pretty amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, oh gosh, I can't even. It's one of those things like you almost feel bad when you come home and you're talking to someone. You're like, it's cool, you know?
Like you got to downplay how awesome it was.
Yeah, or at least at work, right? Like at work, they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's France," but it was cool, you know.
Just represented my country, no big deal.
Yeah, it was cool, you know. Got to hang out with 30 different countries, 800 competitors, you know, in France.
Crazy.
But it was epic. I mean, truly epic. And to be able to go this year was extraordinary because I had the opportunity to go, you know, back in 2015, and I didn't go. And I have regretted it ever since. And I've had people come up countless times and say, "Oh, why didn't you go to the world shoot?" And I was like, "Oh, well," and I would always have some sort of excuse. And what I didn't really want to tell people was I was scared. I was scared to go shoot IPSC shotgun. It seemed intimidating, and traveling overseas seemed really intimidating. The whole process just seemed like, no.
Yeah.
Way out of my, like, traveling internationally with firearm. Nah, that's cool.
It's outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
But, you know, I've also had quite a significant amount of time to grow in the shooting sports since then, and realized that, you know, as long as you get your paperwork in order, things generally aren't too bad. And so, I mean, like, knock on wood for next time, but my process going and coming was super smooth.
Really?
Like, the worst problem I had was like flight delays from Delta just being Delta. It was great. And, you know, the process of getting my firearm ready, you know, we started, I don't know if Diana Muller started it. Somebody started a 2018 IPSC World Shotgun Forum. And so it was great because we had people that had just shot the pistol world shoot on there, giving tips and advice on like, hey, this is what you need, this is what form you need to get your gun through, and just everybody was like sharing all their tips and tricks. So it was kind of like, oh, cool, just like read through this, okay, get that form, go do that, like, cool, you know.
Yeah.
And so it actually made the process, I mean, really actually pretty stinking easy. You know, and I actually laughed. I was actually really uncomfortable because most of us, like when we arrived in France, I don't know if I should say this, but they did not check our firearm. They're like going through some girl's purse, like throwing stuff this way. And I'm like, hey, I got a gun case. Like, gun, typed in firearm into Google Translate. And the guy just looked at me and was like, yeah, go. I'm like, yeah. You don't need to check this. Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Well, I'm gonna go now.
Like, I'm gonna go roll out and grab my Peugeot and drive off now. But yeah, France was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people were awesome.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I did stuff. Well, I flew out by myself. I know a lot of people flew out in groups or had other people. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna fly out because I also had another agenda when I first got there to go and visit Epinal American Cemetery so that I could do a little ceremony for my great great uncle who was MIA, KIA, MIA in World War II.
Huh.
And there was a memorial for him. So I was like, well, you know, I'll fly out and I can get into Paris and then I can spend the day exploring Paris. And the next day, when I just, instead of traveling straight down to Châteauroux, I can drive 4.5 hours out to the cemetery and memorial and visit his site and, you know, pay tribute and then drive down. So I ended up I did an Airbnb, and so I had like a high-rise, like 19th floor apartment with this amazing French Polish couple that I'm pretty sure she thought I was an assassin.
Makes sense.
I think she thought I was an assassin because it's like central Paris, and I've got like the tiniest car in the world, and like my gun case almost had to like hang out the window. And
you're on the 19th floor. She's always looking out the windows.
Yeah. And so like I like circle the block multiple times when I get there, and I'm like, I just need to get the gun case upstairs, and then I can go explore Paris because I can sleep anywhere. So I'd slept the whole 9 hours to Paris, and so I got there, I was super fresh, and I'm like, let's go see stuff. And so I'm just like, I just need to get my stuff in the apartment. And so I had to park about 4 blocks down from the place I was staying. So I am rolling down the streets of Central Paris, like Patriot case in one hand. I've got Patriot case in one hand, big giant suitcase in the other, like my backpack just looking just ridiculous. And I've got people staring like crazy. I'm just like, sorry, excuse me, oh bonjour. Just, and I had to keep taking breaks and like stopping and like rolling my case up and just like slumping down on top of it. Like, okay, let's go. Roll the thing. And finally got it up there, and like the girl looked at me, she goes, "What is that?" And I said, I thought about lying, be like, it's a guitar.
Documents, a lot of documents.
Golf clubs. And I said, it's a firearms case. I told her I was here for the World Shotgun Shoot. And she was like, we have guns here, and it was just amazing. And she just kind of really looked at me she was just super polite, very, very, very polite.
Well, yeah, she probably thought you were going to kill her. So, of course, she was polite.
She's like, so, like, did you rent the place because of the views? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I did. I'm not like thinking, but I'm like, yeah, you've got like a perfect view. And like, I guess she had told her husband that I had a gun, and in the morning when I woke up, he actually like greeted me with coffee, and it was kind of like the suspicious coffee. He was kind of like, oh, hello. He's like, good morning, gave me a cup of coffee, and he's like, so I hear you have a gun. Super duper. But no, they were great, and it was just cool because I got to have, I like to throw myself into a community. So like even with 3-Gun, Diana and Lena, the Miklet gang, everybody had introduced me to Airbnb, several years ago, and I've been hooked ever since.
Oh, so, yeah.
Whether I'm stateside or overseas, like I try to throw myself in. And it was great. I got to have like the whole Airbnb experience. And when I got to Châteauroux, I actually rented a little apartment in downtown Châteauroux. So a lot of people were staying in chateaus, but I stayed by myself and rented because it was like the upstairs apartment of it's the oldest street in Châteauroux. And so I had this like great little apartment to myself. And it was super cool. It was amazing. I can't even say it. It was like the people were cool. The city was amazing.
It sounds pretty awesome.
International competition is great.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So the international competitions, the IPSC Worlds, they're like big deals, right? They treat them almost like the Olympics with, ceremonies, really elaborate. So what was that experience like?
Honestly, at first it was a little intimidating, because when I got there, like I was thinking I was just going to roll through and do stage walkthroughs. I'm like, hey, I'm here early. I'm going to go do my stage walkthroughs. And they're like, yeah. You see the roped line? You do not cross the roped off line. You do not step foot. They have at each stage, they have a covered little awning with, concrete, floor and or spot, little pad. And it was like, you do not cross the roped off portion, and you do not step foot off of the concrete to walk stages. Like for you walking stages, you get to walk them from the outside. So you can walk to the far left, you can walk to the far right, try to see what you can.
So that's quite different from what we do in 3-Gun. Like we'll go up and we'll knock shit over, set it back up, and mess with things and see, pace things off. So, I mean, that's completely different. So what was that like, not being able to do your normal walkthrough routine?
It was one of those things that I was like, man, I really wish I had figured that out ahead of time. But it was also one of those things where like, it wouldn't have mattered because it was like, what good would it have done me ahead of time?
Yeah.
But it was just different. And so I found though that very much like, shooting in the States, you would come up to a stage and you see lots of different shooters there. And everybody's kind of like, oh, well, did you see that one target? No, I didn't see that one target. Oh, see that one over there. And so everybody's kind of helping each other out. Granted, there are some competitors that, because they treat it like they're Olympics, they're very quiet. They're very, write quietly on their notebook or video and then keep stuff to themselves because, for some of them, some of the different countries, that is all they do. Like, they are a representative of their country, and that is their stage plan. And that is not a plan to share with anybody else. It is do what it takes to win, and it was interesting just seeing kind of the different people, but in general, everybody it was kind of like almost like shooting a 3-gun match at home, just just a whole lot more competitors, longer stages, and the rules, I had heard a lot of false things, or they weren't false. It was like everyone heading into the match, we were all super nervous about as far as breaking 90 degrees with our shotguns. And so a lot of us had been told that, at other matches in the past, that if the muzzle essentially rises above the berm,
right,
that was a DQ. But when I first showed up, it was great. I love them so much. They have like gun check, right? So you like go in, you do all your registration, then you bring your guns over and they do a full inspection. They measure the barrel, they measure from the stock to the barrel, they look everything over on your gun to make sure that it meets all the IPSC standards.
Mm-hmm.
I was super nervous. I'm standing there like, oh boy, they're like going everything, and the guy, the South African gentleman that was going through everything, he was kind of like, hey, relax a little bit. You can smile. And I'm like, oh, yes, okay. And it was...
you look all suspicious. Like you're trying to get away with something.
I was just like nervous. I'm like, oh no. The whole, like I hope... I mean, obviously I know my gun's going to make spec, but it's always that just like, it's nervous. It's like going through TSA or something. You're just kind of like, I don't have drugs on me, but I'm going to ask. And so like they're inspecting everything, and they were just really, really nice. And it was the South African gentleman and this Greek lady. And I said, hey, you guys have been so helpful. Like, I have a few questions. And I asked about, as far as my muzzle, I said, I've been really concerned. I said, if I reload and my muzzle just slightly goes upward at, say, 20 degrees, is that going to send me home? And he goes, no. He's like, that's some matches, like, and it turns out, like with IPSC, like some of the matches, depending on where they're located in what country, and depending if they have shorter berms,
right,
then they're very strict about it. Or they're very strict about it, like if your gun is loaded with buck and slug, that's where they're really worried about it. And they were, what they were very concerned about was, they're like, it's not so much the loading. They're like, it's if your finger is in the trigger guard and you have brought the gun out of your face and you're loading and you have your finger in the trigger guard, and that can cause problems. And so it's just kind of familiarizing yourself with the different rules. But it was just like showing up at a 3-gun match you've never shot at before that might have a different rule set. It's like, I asked them, they gave me as many answers as possible, and then I asked other ROs that were there. And there was a Swedish lady that was super, super helpful, really nice. She was like, yeah, here's the things to do and don't do, and this is how to progress forward. And everybody was so helpful. Like, all the ROs were amazing and informative. And then actually, as we started shooting, it was like, like I was with Team USA, we were shooting with the Russian open team and the French team.
Uh-huh.
And it was great. I mean,
and for people that don't know, you're on the US open team, right? So we have 3 ladies open teams all shooting together on the same squad.
Yeah. And really, as far as teams, like we were the contenders, right? Like, and at first it was kind of funny because all of us were pretty quiet to start, and the Russian ladies, they're all extremely professional,
mm-hmm.
and you can tell they take their shooting very, very seriously. Because someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's their job.
Oh, okay.
many of them, that is what they do and they do nothing else. They shoot and they train, and they have been running this platform of shotgun since the beginning of their shooting career. And we had the French ladies, and it was different. It was like a different vibe, because like the Russian ladies were very, very focused and professional, and the French team, they were very focused and professional, but they're also like, they're a little bit more friendly and just kind of like, welcome to France, and like they were great. I was actually telling them, it was like I would go and drink wine with all of them. They were so sweet, and they were super helpful, and it was great, because like at first, like everything's kind of like, you're a little bit nervous, because it's like, you're like, I'm Team USA and we're here because we plan on winning, and
yeah. this is awkward. We're sworn mortal enemies, and here we are on the battlefield.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny, because it was like, as like after like the first couple stages, the first stage, I have to tell you, the first thing that threw me off is they clap. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like an awkward golf clap. It's like,
oh, is it a courtesy clap?
Yeah, and so like, but if you do really badly, they don't clap. Like, if your stage plan goes to shit, it is just the worst silence. And so, like, the first stage, like, they shot and I did something well. It was like, I'm like, are they freaking clapping? Like, okay, cool. And then, the stage that it just goes to hell in a handbasket, and you're just like, like, it becomes a clown show. It is just like when the the RO standing there and tells you to unload and show clear. I mean, it is just like you could hear a pin drop.
Oh, like, wow.
No claps.
That's how you know. Yeah, you don't even have to turn around and be like, did I do good, guys? Yeah, you just know.
No, and you're just like, oh man. But it was really, really a cool experience. Our ladies open team, so it was myself, Sky Killian, Claudia Vidanes, and Lanny Barnes. And so we had a pretty epic ladies team,
yeah.
And we really enjoyed shooting together. And I feel like we took the challenges that were thrown at us and did the best that we could with them. And I don't know, I tell people constantly, and it's always one of those things like, you're like, oh, that's so cheesy. But like, I am so honored to have shot with the ladies that I shot with. I learned so much, and I just have to say, Claudia's family. So her dad is JoJo.
Mm-hmm.
And like, JoJo is well known in IPSC.
Right.
Like, I feel like everybody knows him.
And JoJo was on the men's open team.
Yeah. He was on the men's open team. He's been shooting IPSC for a long time. And like, he was like Claudia's family, like her whole family was there, and they were so helpful. They're like, okay, well, don't do this and do this, and these are the rules. And like, hey, they were all like, give me your phone, I'll take video of you. And like, her dad would walk up and hold our gun. So he would hold our shotgun so we could walk the stage like one last time.
Right, yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean you're gonna hold my gun? I'm like, oh, cool. Like they were just great, and they were just like, oh, here, let me hold your gun, and hey, her mom was like, give me your camera and I'll video you. And it was just a really, really cool experience, and we had an epic team, and gosh, I'd shoot with those girls any day. Like, it was amazing.
How cool is that? That, it's great when you get put together. I mean, because you guys are from all different areas of the country, right? So Sky's from Texas, Lanny's from Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I think Claudia is like either California or Nevada or something like that, and then you're up in North Carolina. So it's cool to be able to come together as Americans on the U.S. ladies team in France and work together like that. And then you had a positive experience. That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a great experience. We were silver, so we were the second place.
Very
team.
Nice. Who was first?
Russia.
Russia? Okay.
Yep. So, it's funny because shooting open division was a huge jump for me. That was definitely, it is a far different, obviously far different shotgun than what I'm used to shooting.
Right. So let's talk about that. So before I was chatting with the Dissident Arms dudes at the NRA annual meeting, which is I guess a couple weeks before the Shotgun World shoot. I didn't realize what a severe disadvantage a tube gun has in IPSC in open division. You're limited to 10 rounds in the magazine on box fed guns. I'm not sure what the limits are on tube guns, but when you talk about a reload that you can perform in, a second and a half versus, stuffing quad loads, that's going to take you forever, or big sticks or anything, it's a huge disadvantage. So it's almost a foregone conclusion that the open teams now are going to be shooting box shotguns. So quite the difference from what you normally shoot in 3-gun, which is Benelli M2, I'm assuming. How was that transition to the Vepr platform? And I know you shot a Dissident Arms shotgun, so what was that transition like?
So, it was one of those things that, when they were picking the teams, I had registered for every division but open. Like, great, cool. I can shoot manual and run a Benelli Supernova. I'll shoot modified and just, trick out my M2. And I knew that with the standard division that they were going to pick the ladies that had shot before, because they had won it the year before. They're amazing shooters. So obviously they're going to get priority for the slots. But,
so those shooters, for people that following along at home, those are Di Muller, Becky Ackley, right? Lena Michalek.
Yep.
Okay.
And Katie Francis.
Katie Francis. Thank you. I knew there was a fourth. Like, God, I'm drawing a blank here. Thank you.
Yep. And so they had, when I got my invitation to the World Shotgun Shoot, they said, yeah, we want you to shoot open. I'm like, oh, cool. So we only have standard and open. Great. That's a great choice. I was like, honestly, I wasn't ecstatic about it because they didn't pick something a platform that I was comfortable with. But I had, wrote back and said, I want to do what it takes to represent Team USA well. And so if we're going to have an open team, then hell yeah. Then I don't know what it's going to take, but I'm going to get an open shotgun. So my first thought is, okay, cool. I'll hit up Mark Roth. I'll run an X-Rail. I'll run sticks. I'll do whatever. And then started talking to people. They're like, yeah, no, Heather, to shoot open in IPSC, you have to run a mag-fed shotgun.
Right.
Like, plain and simple. Like, for you to be competitive and not embarrass yourself or embarrass the country, like you just have to run that platform. That is what every competitor will be running, a mag-fed shotgun.
Well, and to be perfectly clear, you can run a tube shotgun, you can run an X-Rail, but the rules just have like a massive disadvantage in them to where it doesn't make sense to run anything else other than a box shotgun, right?
No, because even with the box, even with the mag-fed shotgun, even though you can run, they have 25 round mags, and we were all running 12 round. Most of us were running 12 round mags, but we had to download them to 10.
Right.
And for anybody that shoots IPSC or shoots USPSA, it was like shooting production division, but with an open gun.
Right.
And so, but, even with it being downloaded to 10, I mean, your mag changes are so quick. The time it would take me to load 10 rounds, as confident as I am in my loading skills, because of the way the stages are built, like in a 3-gun match, you will have that time or have that space where you're running to the next position that you can really have all that time to load. This, not so much.
Right.
Because, it's much closer quarters, so you don't have that space gap to sit there and load, stuff your tube up with 12. So, the obvious choice is you have to run mag-fed if you want to perform well. And so actually Lanny and I found ourselves in the same boat because I shoot for Benelli and Lanny shoots for Beretta.
Mm-hmm.
And so we both obviously wanted to represent Team USA the best that we could. So we both made the most obvious choice. Well, if we're going to run an open gun, we're going to run the best open gun that's out there. So, calling up Mike Whitesides and Lan and, and asked them like, hey, what can you do in a short amount of time?
Right.
And so the guys really worked super hard and they were able to get us our guns. Lanny and I got our guns the same Friday. And so for her, it was 2 weeks before she flew out. For me, it was 2.5 weeks before I flew out. And it was, okay, here is what I've been hoping for. I've been prepping for this moment I'd actually been training with my rifle because I was like, well, this is the closest thing to running a distant arms KL-12 or running the Vepr platform was, just running my rifle. I didn't have an AK sitting around. That would have been better. But we had a short amount of time to get trained up and get ready to fly out there. And I think that we did extraordinarily well. I mean, heck, Lanny did amazing. She was, I believe she was 4th overall, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, she freaking rocked it. She's freaking amazing. She's my ultimate girl crush.
Yeah. Yeah, Lanny's an amazing individual for sure. Great competitor.
Yeah. And so the guns are I mean, it's really just, it's, a lot of people say, a shotgun is a shotgun is a shotgun. Yeah, that's all cool until you make it a completely different platform.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was one of those things that it took a little bit to get used to it. And it was funny because I kept my M2, like I brought my Benelli M2 with me every time to the range because I was like, I don't want her to get jealous. So I would bring it to the range and be like, no, I still love you. Like, still love you, but gotta shoot this for this,
Nice. So let's talk about your training then. What was the, you have 2.5 weeks. That's a significant amount of training to cram into 2.5 weeks to get used to that, not only get used to that platform, but train up to be ready for the world shoot as well.
Yeah. So Eric Eckhart, my fiance, is a phenomenal trainer. He's a phenomenal shooter. You've had him on the show. He's a great guy. Taught and
speak of the devil.
What's up, Dave?
Hey, was he back there waiting the whole time for us to talk about him?
He was like,
Heather might need some reliable rehydration here. So, how's the interview going?
Thanks, Eric. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too.
I like how he does like the shooter side. He's got like the Adams.
Yeah, look at that. That's amazing timing. I'm sorry he sat there for an hour and 10 minutes to do that.
I love Adam's arms. I don't shoot their guns. But no, it's funny because even with that, like Eric and I, we try to keep our shooting separate. So we try to keep like the rifle companies that we shoot for separate. And once we started seriously dating and got beyond the whole like, oh, I like you too. It was like, we realized that like the training together thing was going to end.
Oh, right? Really?
Yeah. Cause it's one of those things like, especially when you're two very competitive people and very serious people, and it's always that, like, you always hear that, like, guys like, I keep telling my wife to shoot this way and she doesn't listen. And the wife is like, my boyfriend or my husband or whoever is a jerk. And, and it's one of those things that with relationships and shooting, it's like with anything. Even if they're teaching you like knife throwing skills.
Yeah, driving a clutch.
Yeah. It's one of those things that like, you obviously as the person being taught want to do well. So there's already it makes that instructor student role be tough. And so Eric, we knew the shotgun was going to come in at a certain point in time, and he came in and was like, hey, he goes, I'm going to set up a training schedule for you. Like, but this is the thing. Like, we're breaking our rule. Like, our rule is like, we always talk about shooting in theory. Like, we'll have drunk, like, dry erase board, like, shooting theory night. They're like, oh, you should shoot it from this angle, and this is what MOA means. And, you know, we've had many, many nights of sitting there drawing stuff on the dry erase board and just, like, hashing out shooting in theory, but not doing it on the range. So he goes, I'm going to set up a training program, but you're going to have to treat me like your instructor, and you're going to have to act like the student, you know? And I was like, okay. And so it was like, he literally, I still to this day, and I'm sorry, this is ultra mush. Like,
I told you I might throw up on this.
I know. But like, he seriously, like, he moved heaven and earth. And I swear to God, like, half of the SF guys in the area were like in on it, like setting up places for me to train, facilities to be at, like just like, here, come to my farm and shoot here, and just like moving heaven and earth so that I could shoot and train after work, because I still had to work nonstop. And so I was waking up at 4:45 in the morning, going to the gym, getting in a solid workout, and then spending 15-20 minutes dry fire practice. And then I would get dressed for work and then go to work. And then I wouldn't get off of work until about 5:30 or 6 every day. And, you know, Eric was like standing by, like, okay, I'm at the range, I'm ready to go, everything's set up, like, all you need to do is get here. And I would get there, and it was great because it took a lot of stress off, because he had the shooting program set up. And some of it, he was just kind of like, this is going to seem crazy. And you might just be like, oh my gosh, why are we doing this? Like, this is so rudimentary and basic. And he had looked at the stages and looked at the program and was like, this is what's going to help you excel in the shortest amount of time possible and get you as familiar with this platform as possible. And after 3 days, and I was going through 250 to 350 rounds an evening, between, if I was lucky, I would start at about 6 p.m. and we would shoot until there was literally no light left. Which at the time here at East Coast, it's about 8:45, 9 o'clock or so. If it was raining, there was a couple nights it was raining, and it was just like, nah, we have no time. We have no time, so we're just going to shoot through it. And so, I lived a crazy schedule up until the world shoot, with, I think I had 1 day off from shooting up until then. And it was epic, and I can't thank him enough.
That's first of all, that's really awesome. I'm very happy for you guys to have that kind of relationship where he can help you out, and you can take the step back and realize, like, hey, this is for America here. We're gonna do this. But so the training program, 2.5 weeks, tons of rounds downrange, 250 to 300 rounds per session. That's a lot. Now, what was your mindset like when you stepped on the plane?
There's no room for failure at this point. It really, the shooting on a team really changed, in my mindset, I've always been one of those people, like, I love shooting, and shooting is fun for me. And so, if a match doesn't go well, or if, I stayed up too late or didn't train, I'm like, I'm still going to go, going to have a good time. I'll represent my sponsors well. I'll educate people about the product. But, if my performance isn't 100%, I was still a good brand ambassador. But for this, I felt like an added level of stress.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, because it was like, holy heck, man, like, you're not just wearing a USA jersey, you are on the Team USA Ladies Open team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's you guys, and like, if I fail, I influence them in in a bad way, and I don't want to let them down. Like, I don't want to let them down. I don't want to let my country down. I don't want all the people that I happened to tell that I was going, like, oh no, I screwed the pooch, man, and then like ruined it for everybody. And it was one of those things. So I was like, for me, it was like there was no other option. It was like I knew I needed to hit the gym and train beforehand. So it was like, well, got to be out the door to work at 7 o'clock. So 04:45 is my wake up. Like, this is the schedule. And it was like, and like I cut out, eating healthy, and was like, okay, well, we're not going to touch alcohol until I get to France. And even then it was like, and it was kind of part of why I stayed by myself, is like, I'm very, very focused right now on my performance. And so I'm going to perform, I'm going to behave like an athlete. I'm going to eat like an athlete and treat it that way, because like going to France isn't for playtime.
Right.
This is playtime. This is, I'm representing my country. And that's the biggest thing is, like Americans can get enough flack, overseas. We've all seen the cartoons and memes and stuff. And so it's one of those things I was like, I want someone that if they meet me, that they have a positive experience, because I might be that person. They say, hey, you know what? Those Americans are pretty cool, and their shooters are great. And and I want them to have a positive experience. I want them to, I wanted to represent well, and it was hard. It was the hardest thing about it all was I was so proud to shoot for Dissident Arms, and Benelli was the match sponsor. It was like the match sponsor, and like I went over, and the lady she coordinates. She's the marketing representative who coordinates all of the Benelli Italy shooting events. And I went up to her and I was like, hey, and I like talked to her about shooting open. I was like, oh no, this might be like an awkward conversation. And then she was great. She's like, oh no, absolutely. She's like, you got to represent your country. You got to do this. And it was just, I don't know. It was just really, it was a neat experience shooting with the team, because we supported each other. And it almost kind of makes me wish that we had a little bit more. I wish we had more team sports, actually. Like we have the 3-man 3-gun, and
right.
It's kind of, it was a cool experience. It's that like, you want to do well for each other, and I like the dynamic with our ladies team was great. Like I literally could not have shot with better women. Like we all, like our personalities just meshed so well, and it was like I would shoot with you and I would hang out with you anywhere else, like anytime. Like they were just awesome.
That's fantastic. It sounds like such a great experience, and the team environment is definitely something that's unique, especially for us who we compete on every other weekend in an individual sport. So it's not like you have other people relying on you. So I'm glad that the experience turned out well, and it's a positive one for you.
Yeah. It was amazing. We have to have you out next time.
Yeah, I'm down. Now that I know about modified division, like I can just load the tube up and just shoot away. I'm all right. I'm in.
I think that was one of the other cool aspects, was seeing how all the other different countries and competitors, how they modify their shotguns.
Oh yeah.
Like some of the pump guns that guys were running, like I'm just like, is that even like it looked like Terminator gun, just like stripped down, just amazing. Like some of the advanced modifications that they have done to these shotguns, that I'm like, wow, like we're not even doing this in the States yet.
I know, and I was watching some of the amazing videos that people were showing of like their world shoot prep from other countries, where I mean, you can't understand what they're saying, but you're just like watching what they're doing, and it's like, holy cow, like they, like you said, that is their one thing. In several countries, shotgun sports are like pretty much all they have. So when they have one gun and they have all the time in the world to modify that one gun, and they're not chasing gear like we are in 3-gun, You come up with some like serious ingenuity, and I'm such a like mechanical nerd. Like that stuff was just like really tripping me out. It was some amazing things came out of that.
Yeah, there were. I had my camera out, so I was running around, and for those that don't know, when I'm not shooting, I generally like to be behind a camera or up in the mountains. So
nice, or both, or both.
Yes, or both. Yes, both. But I had my camera, I was like taking pictures. Like some of the I even saw people like have like their shell catches like cut down at like a 45-degree angle. Just some like really interesting modifications, like some of the modified guns, have these like large crazy muzzle brakes on the end. It was just really interesting looking at the different shell caddies, the different mags, the different styles. I think it was Thailand, because Claudia had pointed out where in Thailand they have a style where you shoot basically like you shoot it into tube fed shotgun, and they have I don't even know, like the video was grainy, so I didn't even get to see it, and I never got the opportunity to see it in person, where they literally just like take the tube off and swap it with another tube.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like what is that? And it's just incredible to see like what they come up with, and honestly, hanging out in between stages with the international competitors was super cool. And it was really if you don't appreciate being an American and living in the United States and having the Second Amendment rights that we have, hang out with international shooters, and it'll definitely make you miss home.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Heather, something you said there really just excites me. The fact that there's all these different guns from all over the world, but they're all playing by the same rules. So it's like 800 people's interpretation of the rule set, and like how they come up with a solution to the exact same problem. And I think that's cool that there's so many different approaches, to the same issue. I think that's really cool, and probably a really exciting thing to see live as well.
Yeah, it was super cool, and just what an amazing group of people. And it was just we had just listening to the different struggles that they go through, and what they have to go through just to do something that we can just throw the gun in the back seat of our car and just roll to the range. And they're like, we gotta fill out this form and then go through this, and then I gotta go to this special such and such place. And
and if you stop for gas on the way home and now you've deviated from your path, and you can get arrested for that. There's all kinds of things that we take for granted here. Like you were telling the story of walking out of your parents' backyard and shooting into the berm. I mean, that's going to blow almost everyone's mind that's listening to this internationally. Yeah,
well, it's one of those things that was funny because I felt like a lot of the shooters, like they kind of reminded me of like the 3-gun family, like everybody was really especially those that at least spoke decent English, and like we could communicate really well. It was like once you started talking to each other, it's like, it's like I've known you for 20 years. And you listen to people, and some of them were talking about current legislation that they were going to be fighting in their own country that was going to make it more difficult for them to be able to compete in the shooting sports. And then I heard about so many other matches. Like we had one of the photographers that was taking great pictures of everybody. Andy Rose was like, yeah, you should come to Greece and like shoot a shotgun match in Greece. And like, that would be amazing. And
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, like cool. Like I never associated Greece with IPSC shotgun, and learned more about like the Ireland. Northern Ireland does a phenomenal match that actually my teammate Aaron Hayes and his wife Nikki went and shot last year, and heard that the township is going to get so like they're trying to turn it into a festival, and so it's literally going to be like small town carnival, like pony rides and shotgun shooting.
No kidding.
And I was like, I have to sign up for that.
I love pony rides.
Like what an amazing experience to be able to go to Ireland or go to any of these countries and be able to, shoot and do what we love. And I think we had a good reception from people. Lanny and Diana and myself went out to lunch and had a table of Frenchmen buy us our lunch because we're shooters.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, they actually came up to our table. We're sitting there, and then actually I think it was the last day, and so we're just smoked. Everybody's just tired. We're sitting there, and we're just chowing down on this big French meal, and this old man comes up to our table, and I think they had been day drinking. Like they had probably been there all morning, but a bunch of old men, so they're smoking their cigarettes and drinking their wine and beer, and came over, and he didn't speak any English at all, but he goes, "Oh, you." He goes like this, like makes this like shotgun type symbol. And Diana was like, "Oh," like pulls up on her phone and pulls up a shooting video and is like, "Oh, this is what we do." And he was like, "Oh, this is amazing." He like brings her over, and like she's like, I actually took a picture of her at one point where she's leaning over the table showing these guys shooting videos, and they just like, they couldn't speak a lick of English, but they kept going like
thumbs up.
And it was awesome. Like I don't know, it was just cool. It was cool. And yeah, and then we were super surprised because the waiter came up and was like, "Oh yeah, the crazy old guys over there got your dinner or got your lunch." But it was definitely amazing. I can't wait for the next one.
So you're going to go again in 2021 then?
Absolutely. So we talked about it, and it's one of those things where I want to shoot open again, and I would like for the U.S. to not only be gold in standard but also be gold in open. It was amazing to have Josh Froelich win overall.
Yeah.
Because the Russians are very, very good in shooting open. That is their platform. That is their gun.
Literally.
Literally their gun. Like they grew up, like since toddlers, we've been running Saigos and Kalashnikov, and to have Josh win it was pretty epic. I mean, and especially to have, seeing him stand up there, and hear the national anthem is pretty epic, and we were able to experience that while we were in second place, but it was like, you're standing up there, and I'll say this, and nobody else will probably say this, but it's like, you're standing up there, and I was like, and we're holding the American flag, and I was like, no, next time we'll be up there. Like next time you're all going to get to hear the national anthem until you're sick of it. Like you're going to hear it in every division because we just want to be like back-to-back champs. But I'll definitely do it again. And I'd like to shoot with the same ladies again.
Very cool. So let's back up just a little bit here. You said you're not competitive, but then you just uttered the statement of next year you're going to be hearing the national anthem.
I was not competitive until I got into the shooting sports.
Really?
Yeah.
And are you competitive now?
Yeah, I'm pretty competitive. Well, it depends on how much I've been working. Like, managing a career full time makes it hard. It's made it significantly harder, and the past 8 months or so, like I really dedicated to my job because I was like, okay, we're gonna get this thing running and do all of this stuff, and then shooting's gonna take the back burner. And now I've gotten back into now it's back into the motions and back into training. But it's like this is what standard everyday people have to do is you have to take your 3-gun training, your shooting training, precision rifle, whatever it is. And you've got to work that around your life. And for some people, it's like, okay, cool. I have a 2-hour window that I might be able to get some stuff done. Or I've got maybe 30 minutes a day where I can dedicate, and then I've got to spend all my training on either the weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how many people have done so well and they make it work. But you just gotta have to shift some priorities around. You gotta turn the TV off.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm kind of in that mode myself. And, the last couple of years, all I've been doing is basically traveling and shooting 3-gun. But, I'm here in the 3-gun show world headquarters, and you can see over my shoulder there my guns. So, yeah, I have like my dry fire. I'm sorry?
Yeah, what shotgun you running nowadays?
That's a P3000. I'm shooting a pump division next weekend. So, yeah. Yeah, so normally, I've got the Breda B12 IS that Hayes Custom Guns tuned up for me. But, yeah, I'm shooting a pump division next weekend at the Colorado 3-Gun Championship. So I'm totally practicing with that. But
that's awesome. Yeah,
it's pretty exciting. It's something different to do, which has been kind of fun. But, when you talk about, the time management and the sacrifice, my big thing is on social media is I always do, range day. And I can't tell you how many jealous DMs I get during the day of like, I'm out on a Thursday training or something like that. I'm at the range, but they don't see the Sunday where you're working, or the 10 p.m. where you're working, stuff like that. So everybody has the sacrifices and the same 24 hours in a day, and it's all in how you manage that and what you want to put into your sport versus your career. So it's a balance, right?
It is. It's really about it's about balance and priorities. And for me, it's like I sit at work, and I understand why, like, because I used to get that, like, because I worked remotely. I made my own schedule, and so I would set up, do a little bit of work early in the morning, then mid-morning was training before it got hotter than hell, and then it was back to work. And so I would have, I was going through 1,000 rounds of rifle a week. You get like the must be nice, like, oh, you're living the dream life, and all these like crappy messages.
It is, and I am.
And and I still don't know why people send those crappy messages. Like, it's always kind of like, well, why do you have to be a Debbie? Because like, there's plenty of times, like, and reason I bring that up is because, like, my office doesn't have windows, and there are times where I put a target up on my wall so I can just stare at it, and I just sit there on a conference call, like, daydreaming. I'm just like, I remember those days, and I wouldn't dare like get on my computer and be like, it must be nice.
That's because you're an adult.
not the keyboard commando. You're doing it all wrong.
Yeah, exactly. That'll get you killed in the streets.
That's not real cover.
Yeah. Oh, I love those. All right, Heather, we have some comments in the YouTube chat for people that are watching along here. First one is from Jimmy Jones, and he has two, and he says, "Did you compete against Corinne Mosier this season yet?"
This season, I don't think so.
I think she shoots a different division too, right? You shoot TAC Ops normally.
Yeah, I shoot TAC Ops. She generally shoots irons.
Yep.
I think she might. So I didn't start my shooting season until Texas Multigun. And so even for that, because of my work schedule, because I had this big giant Army trade show that weekend, I flew out and shot the match pretty much shot all of it on Thursday, and then shot 2 stages on Friday, shot everything on Friday, shot 2 stages on Saturday, and was out of there by noon and like flew out. So I didn't get a chance really to see anybody. It kind of sucked. It was like, I realized after doing it, I was like, I will not do this again, because I think Corinne was there, and generally, like, she and I like I love shooting with Corinne. She's awesome. Like, for DC Project, she's been my roomie.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, like, I hated it because I didn't get to see any of my 3-gun family. Like, I was like, hi.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I haven't shot against her this year, I don't think.
Gotcha. And then he also asked, for someone starting out in 3-gun, how long of a barrel do you suggest on the Benelli Field M2? And how long for the shell capacity? Or I guess, what is the shell capacity?
So I would go with the 24-inch. Everybody kind of goes between the whole, should I go with 21-inch? Should I go with longer? But 24 inches is the perfect length for anything that you're going to do in 3-gun. It is I don't recommend anything else, truly. And then for the tube, you want 12 plus 1.
Cool. Easy enough. And then, so this person's username is Migsticks, but this is Mig. So he went with you to the World Shoot. Heather,
Yes.
what was your one big takeaway from the World Shoot?
Don't talk to Meg.
Sounds like there's a story there.
No, just kidding. Gosh, my one big takeaway. I would say it's not as hard as you think. I saw that when they started talking about the World Shoot, there were not enough shooters. Like, one, we should have had more representation from the US. We really should have. But I think there's a lot of shooters that are intimidated to travel internationally and to do it. Because, I mean, heck yeah, I was super intimidated until I just made the decision to do it. So, one, it's not as hard as you think. And two, we need more shooters showing up. Like, you look at these other countries and you see how much support that they have from their country to go and compete at this. And we don't have enough on our side. Like, we need to spread the word about IPSC World Shotgun Shooting and what a great experience it is, how good it is for our country and how good it is to represent. So I think it's, one, it's amazing. And two, we need to spread the word here in the US more and sooner so that we can have more people compete. Because I'm trying to think, I think Thailand had almost 40 people.
Oh, wow. How many came with the US?
Oh, Mig would know. I don't know. 30, maybe 30, 32, I think might have been the number. But yeah, I feel like we need more. And I feel that when we come home stateside, we need to have more, I want to get more news sources and people to find out about it. Share your pictures, share your videos, do interviews, talk to people and tell them, this is epic. You won't shoot a match like it. I won't shoot another match like it for another,
3 years. Yeah.
2021. That it's a cool experience. It's definitely worth doing it. It's cool.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, Heather, we've been chatting for quite a while here. I've got a few last questions for you, and then I'll let you get on with your evening. But the first one is going to be, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever received as far as practical shooting goes?
There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Ah, that's a good one. Do you have a good example of a stupid question you had one time that really helped you out?
Well, it was something I didn't ask, but I should have asked when I got into 3-gun. And we had talked about this before, because had to deal with safety and I hurt my because of it.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So I think that, it goes to the stupid questions. Sometimes we get in the shooting sports and we don't ask all the questions that we should. We don't read all the rules that we should. We kind of, skim over them.
Yeah.
And go and shoot. And, when I first got into 3-gun, I was super excited. And like I said, I started competitive shooting and that competitive bug bit me for sure. And I was shooting a match and I had just gotten good enough in 3-gun that I was actually giving, some of the other competitors a good, run for their money. So there was a bunker stage. I guess I'll go straight into it. So there was a stage, and this was just something I didn't know in 3-gun. So it was you had to I'm trying to think. Yeah. So you started out in the bunker with your rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And I was down in the bunker and literally chest deep hole, sandbags completely on the front, on the sides, and on part of the back. So you're really walled in. So anybody that's ever shot indoors, it's really loud.
Yeah.
It's really, really loud. And the RO is standing outside of the bunker, and he's, when he starts the timer, he, sticks it down in the box so you can hear it. And I couldn't hear him I had some jankety Ear Pro back then. And so it was one of those things like once it was in, I couldn't hear anything. And so I had taken my Ear Pro out to listen to, what he was telling me about my range commands. And I'm like, okay, cool, thumbs up. I forgot to put my Ear Pro back in.
Oh, man.
And I had taken it out and like put it in my pocket and forgot to put it back in. Well, if anybody's ever run an SJC Titan comp on their rifle, even if you're not in a bunker, that is an exceptionally loud break. Like it does a very good job of dispelling these. But of course, all of that pressure comes out with loud noises. So
right.
Round one, first trigger pull, I realized, no, this is bad. I've made a mistake. But I was afraid, and why I didn't immediately stop shooting was because I thought that I wouldn't be able to fix my score. I figured that if I stopped myself and said, hey, I didn't put in my Ear Pro, I need to stop, that either A, it would have been put on the clock and counted against me and I'd have just to keep shooting, or B, I would have to stop shooting entirely and take all the rest of the rifle targets, all the rest of the shotgun targets, all the rest of the pistol targets, and take all those penalties.
Yeah, all those failure to engages.
Yeah, all the failures to engages, and I wanted to win. I wanted high lady. Like I was like, I'm gonna win. This is my thing. And so, like a dumbass, like a
dumb butt,
like a nincompoop. I don't know. I decided to keep shooting, so I shot. I think it was like 32 rounds of rifle.
Oh wow! Oh my god!
And then you had to run up this little like steps, like ladder up out of the bunker. And then draw your pistol. That's right. There was no shotgun in that one. Draw your pistol and shoot a bunch of pistol to the left of the bunker, a bunch of pistol to the right of the bunker, and then you're done. When I finished, it felt like someone had taken a baseball bat and smacked me upside the head multiple times with it. I heard it was such a high pitch ringing that it was making me nauseous, and I had to go over to the side and I started dry heaving. Like it was that bad. And every time someone would talk to me, I would hear this. I was like a stereo speaker going bad, this like high pitched screech. If someone said something to me, like all sound was just wrong. And unfortunately, I did irreparable damage to my head. Yeah,
I would imagine. That's a lot of rounds.
And it was one of those things I was like, oh, like, it's like you go back and you're like, stupid. Like, is a match win really worth your safety? And afterwards, like the ROs, like, of course, are coming over. They're like, Heather, like, are you okay? What the heck's going on? I was like, I have Ear Pro. They're like, you what? Like, oh my God, it's just a local match. It was like a local 3-gun match.
Yeah.
Like, that's something we would have just started you over. That, like, they're like, that is safety 101. They're like, if your eye pro falls off, if your Ear Pro falls out, if you start shooting and it's not in, like, stop yourself. We will restart you. Like, it is not worth hurting yourself. And I'm like, what was that again?
It's so, I mean, it's amazing because it seems so silly now, like, again, with the gift of time that to reflect on it. But at the time, it's like, you really want that win, that high lady. But like you said, like, there's no club match in the world that's worth not being able to hear. So I think that's a good lesson. I thank you for sharing that. It's definitely something I see a lot of newbies doing where, I'll be standing in the back and be like, stop that guy. He doesn't have any Ear Pro.
Yeah. And I've seen girls go through, or guys, and they're like, afterwards. I'm like, no. Like, and it's like my one thing, like shooter 101 is if at any time anything safety related happens, like your eye pro, your Ear Pro, your belt's coming off, just freaking stop.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Because now, at least when I'm, if I'm in loud, noisy areas or a restaurant, I have a tendency not to. If anybody sit on this side, I have a hard time hearing them.
Yeah.
But it works well. It works well for Eric and I, because between the both of us, it's just kind of, we're constantly like yelling. You're like, huh? So we'll just text each other when he's upstairs and I'm downstairs.
Perfect.
It works good.
Well, yeah. So seriously, thank you for sharing that story, because that is something that is huge, and it's very important because you only get one go at it. So if you damage them for good, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, I can armchair quarterback with that one.
Yeah, pretty easily, right? Well, Heather, next question: where do you see the sport of three gun headed?
So it's funny, actually. I was talking about this at work, talking about some of our retail stores, and it was, I've actually, I'm trying to push our company to cater more towards the shooting sports because we don't currently. And it's because I only see three gun growing. Just like precision rifle has continued to grow, three gun, I don't know. I really like to see some true numbers on it, but I'd like to say it's probably one of the fastest growing shooting sports out there. And I don't know if it's necessarily because, I think a lot of it has to do with social media, and due to social media, people see it and it seems more extreme than some of the other shooting sports. And, definitely seems like it's, so different than what people are used to thinking of when it comes to shooting. But, I see it only continuing to grow. I mean, I had actually said today, I was like, we have college three gun teams now.
Yeah, pretty incredible.
Yeah, like Florida State, Texas A&M Corps Cadets. I'm like, okay, if you can get colleges and universities on board with the shooting sports, then I don't know, maybe in a few years, like maybe once things calm down and people gain some sense, maybe we get get high school teams. Like what, that might be a bit of a push, but I only see the shooting three gun growing. And part of why I see it growing so rapidly and only continuing to grow is a lot of people say like, oh, we have this big buying surge of firearms during the Obama administration.
Mm-hmm.
It actually started before Obama. Like it started at the sunset of the assault weapons ban.
Yeah, for sure. That's when I got all my cool stuff.
Yeah, like everyone's like, oh crap, like we can buy it now. So we've essentially, had, 15 years or so of just like this constant rise of people buying guns, right? And now it just seems like the firearms industry is tanking, right? Like we're like, oh, everybody's like freaking out, like, oh, we've got 35% less sales than, you see major corporations, major firearms companies going bankrupt. And, I had a conversation with people, and I said, I think one of the ways to save the industry and save the firearms industry as a whole is to really push and amplify the shooting sports, because you have all these people that the majority of them have been buying like crazy. They've been stockpiling ammo. Now they're just sitting on it, and no one's trying to take it away. Well, depending on what state you're living in. If you're living in Washington State right now, that's not a good place to live. But,
yeah, that's true.
But, they're sitting on all these firearms. And so now this is a great time to introduce shooting sports. And I think that's why you see more and more people getting into it. And a lot of new shooters jumping straight into it, because it's like, oh, well, I panic bought a bunch of ARs and shotguns and a shit ton of ammo. So what am I going to do with it? Oh, well, this looks fun. I'm going to use it. So I think that's kind of one of the ways that I think a lot of firearms industry or manufacturers can start. They should look at, catering towards the shooting sports. I just realize it's such a small percent of the firearm owning populace, but it's still rapidly growing. And, if anybody's ever, as well as I do, or any three gun competitor knows that three gun is not a cheap sport.
No, it's definitely gear intensive. We're like super buyers of gear.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, are you kidding? Like, we buy everything. We're buying constantly. People are spending $20,000 a year or more on three gun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I only foresee it growing more. I look forward to seeing gun companies that have never really done anything for the shooting sports stepping up to the plate and producing something that that competitors can start using.
Yeah. What I really like about what you said there was the going back to what you were talking about with the World Shoot, when you say like, we need more people to shoot the World Shoot to spread the word, to show what a good time it is. It's the same thing with the shooting sports in general. We talk about how the shooting sports is such a small portion compared to like hunting, right? Well, hunting, we've been doing that for like literally hundreds of thousands of years, right? We just have these amazing tools to do them now. So shooting sports is something that is relatively new, especially when you compare it to hunting. So of course it's a small segment of the market, but with the help of firearms manufacturers, in promoting, in supporting shooting sports, we can grow the shooting sports, which creates more buyers, which creates more support in the shooting sports, which creates more buyers. It's just like round and round. So it's like the farm league kind of thing. It is absolutely important, and to have those industry partners that are stepping in and trying something new is really exciting to see, because they're looking for a unique way to market now that they are unable to market based on panic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things. I actually thought about it. There's an event I've constantly been trying to get you to come out to, is Dusk and Three Gun.
Yeah, dude, put me down for 2019 on that one. I totally want to come.
It's always on, like, because the guys that run the match, they always have to work with range control because the match is on base. So it always ends up being like the most awkward weekend ever.
Right.
But like, and it's one of the things that I see so many sponsors, like we've all seen the price table go down at major matches over the past few years. Like it just has steadily kind of dwindled and staggered off. But yet at Dusk and Three Gun, we still see a large amount of support. And I think part of that is because Dusk and Three Gun, for those that don't know, it's kind of a invite only for civilians, but the purpose of the event is to encourage active duty service members to get into the shooting sports, because the Mike Duskin, who the match was started in honor and in memory of and memorialized for, Mike was huge into the shooting sports. He was huge into USPSA, raising his children in the shooting sports and bringing other members of the military community into the shooting sports it's a positive environment, bringing their families into it. He was convinced that it makes you a better war fighter, all these various positive, great things. And so they started this match in honor and memory of him. And I've been shooting the match from the start, and this was the 5th annual year. And, the first few times you'd see these guys come in and shoot the sport, and these are avid shooters. Like most of the guys that shoot it are third group guys, and they love guns, they love shooting, but they're just kind of like, they don't really shoot. They don't shoot competitive shooting,
right.
Not very many of them. But they started doing Dusk and Three Gun, and these guys started getting into it, and then all it takes is your first 3-gun match, and you're like, oh my god, this is the most fun. And so like this year, oh my god, I think we had 160 competitors.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And very, very few civilians. And it's one of those things where the sponsors that are supporting it know that most of the guys walking them off with the stuff on the price table, they're taking it and they're literally turning around and shooting it.
That's really cool.
Half the guys don't understand the fact when you walk the price table, like, no, or go grab the highest value item. They're like, oh no, I really need a trigger. And they just will grab a trigger with an optic sitting on a table, But it's one of those things. I think that the more we can bring new shooters into the sport and keep, get the neighbor, get the people, get the military or law enforcement guy that's kind of like, I like shooting, but competitive shooting's not my thing. The more you can bring those people into it, I think it's gonna, really help the sport, and promoting it on social media. More people like to see extreme things. That's why CrossFit blew up so much. People see cool stuff and they want to do cool things too. So
yeah, and we are an observation society. We love watching people do cool things too. But the great thing about 3-gun is you can actually get out there and do those cool things yourself, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. And you don't have to be in CrossFit shape either.
All right, Heather, one final thought or one piece of advice for the audience here.
Okay.
And that's on you. Go for it.
Oh, I mean, I was like, oh gosh. I would say it was what I would tell my younger self is don't wait. Don't wait so long to get into shooting sports. Like, don't be scared. Like, I think the shooting sports, no matter what discipline, is full of the most amazing, nicest, extraordinary people in the world. And even if you don't have the gear, just go to a match, talk to people, just walk up and talk to them. Like, everybody is really friendly, I promise. And just get out there, learn about the sport, and most people will loan you gear. Most of us, because we have bought gear many times before as we were going through learning what gear we prefer to run, we generally have a stockpile of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Extra belts and rigs and guns and all sorts of things. So don't wait. Get out now. Go now, shoot now, don't wait. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
I like it. Well, Heather, that's a great final thought. Thank you so much for being a part of the Three Gun Show. Thanks for giving me your evening here to share with the Three Gun Show audience. This has been a ton of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was super fun.
This podcast is brought to you by Armalite. The original Armalite rifles put the AR in AR-15. The rifles themselves come with 1-in-8 twist barrels, match barrels, 18-inch or 13.5-inch with a 15-inch or 12.5-inch handguard, Timney trigger, Luth AR stock, adjustable gas system, tunable comp, a patented tunable comp. This thing's ready to go right out of the box for a 3-gun with no additional modifications other than putting on a nice optic. I myself use a Vortex Viper PST 1-6 when I'm shooting TAC Ops or their Spitfire when I'm shooting limited. Check them out at armalite.com. Quick reminder that if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, subscribe in iTunes, Google Play, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcast content, so you will always get the very latest. Thank you so much for downloading, listening, and subscribing to the show. I'm Dave Hartman, and I'll see you on the range.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.